you see the world? How do you make sense of the life that you live? You know, we call this a worldview, and everyone has one. Yours may not be fully developed, or you may not have thought a lot about it, but every one of us arranges our life and our understanding of life through various key aspects, like, do we believe in God or do we not believe in God? Do we have these values or do we have these other kinds of values? So if you're a spiritual person, you would have a spiritual worldview. If you're an atheist, you would have an atheistic worldview. Maybe you're really into thinking that money is the most important thing, and so you are more materialistic, or you have a materialistic worldview. So it's how you live your life, the belief systems that you have. And like I said, we all have it. It's not just religious people, it's every one of us looks at life, all the big questions, gender, sexuality, the economy, politics, spirituality. It all goes together to form our worldview. It's how we live our lives and what we believe. So if everybody has a worldview, and I suggest we all do, what do we do when our worldview is different from somebody else's worldview? Is that going to be a problem? Will that create conflict? Are we supposed to try to convince people that our worldview is better than their worldview? Or should we let everybody believe whatever they want to believe? Well, let's just have an example for a second and think this through. Let's say there are two men, and they both live on two different sides of a big chasm. And one lives in a very tropical world. They love it. It's sunny, there's an ocean, there's tropical fruit, there's sand, it's very comfortable, it's very beautiful, very sunny, wonderful place to live. And let's say on the other side of the chasm, where they live, this man has a blizzard. He lives in the Arctic. It's snowy and it's cold and it's freezing. So they both live in their own world. They both operate under those circumstances. But one day, let's say a bridge is built between the two of them, and they come out onto the bridge. One's on one side and the other's on the other side. One's dressed in shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops. The other one's dressed in a parka and a snowsuit. And they look at each other and they say, well, that's kind of a strange outfit that you have. And the other one says the same thing. Well, you look kind of strange. Aren't you cold without any jacket on? And so they start to talk with one another, and they start telling each other about their worlds. And one says to the other, you should leave your worldview, you should leave where you live and come over to my worldview, where I live, because it's sunny there and it's warm and there's tropical fruit and it's just a great place to live. But the other one says, no, you should come and live with me, because we get to go fishing for these great fish, and we go whaling, and we do all these things that you do in the Arctic. And the other one thinks, that's crazy. Why would I want to live there? It's freezing, it's cold. So back and forth they go until they understand that, until they see it for themselves, until they think through it a little bit more than just operating from their own perspective. So the one suggests, why don't you come to the edge of the bridge and just see my world and look at it for a little while? Then I'll go to your side of the bridge and I'll look at your world, and maybe together we would come up with the best place to live. And so they do. They kind of share each other's experiences, tell each other about what it's like to live there, and as a result of that, they might make a choice. And it's okay at the end of the day if one wants to live in the Arctic and the other one wants to live in the tropics. That's fine, but wouldn't it be better if they had an ability to think it through, examine it for themselves, and make the best decision possible? I think so. So in a world that's so full of different worldviews between friends and family members, co-workers, even strangers, how do we navigate all these differences? How do we get along with people who think differently about life and about God and about all the big questions? Now remember, we aren't talking just about personal opinions. Some people like the Rams and some people like the Dallas Cowboys. That's not something that we really should fight about. Maybe you love doing one thing and somebody else loves doing something else. Somebody loves the color red and somebody loves the color green. It's okay. Those kind of things are inconsequential, not important. We all have different opinions, and opinions are something that we simply hold. We believe that red is a better color than blue. That's just something we hold. Now, a conviction or a worldview is actually something a little different. It's a value that actually holds us. It defines who we are, and we have to navigate those differences by coming up with a little bit of a strategy. And I would say that the first thing we do, just like my illustration of the gentleman who lived in the tropics versus the gentleman who lived in the Arctics, is we actually have to go out on a bridge. We have to build a bridge, and we have to establish some common ground. We have to meet people who think differently about life and be willing to come out and greet them and get to know them and become their friend. And the best way to pursue this examination of worldviews is just to learn from one another. And how do we do that? The best way is we ask honest questions. Hey, can you tell me why you believe what you believe about this? Or, hey, I understand that you believe this, so can you tell me more about that? And just share that back and forth. Those questions will lead to good, healthy conversations. And then third, we ultimately want to show respect for one another. We want to be able to say, oh, okay, well, that's not my worldview. I prefer living in the tropics. I don't want to live in the Arctic world. That's okay. They can choose to live there. You can choose to live where you want to live. But at least you've built a bridge. At least you've informed one another. At least you've asked questions. And each side has taken that in to decide for themselves what they think is best. And that's the value of not only understanding that we all have a worldview, but that our worldview needs to be developed and well thought out. And I hope that you'll spend some time thinking about your worldview. Hey, will you do me a favor before I go? Will you use the comment section below to let me know what your worldview might be, just in a few sentences or a couple phrases? I'd love to know the different worldviews of people listening to this video blog. And hey, even as I wrap up, I want you to know that there is one tension to this whole conversation on worldview that I really haven't brought up, and we're going to talk about it next time. And that is the issue of when your worldview actually does conflict at a significant level with another person's worldview. Because at the very, very basic ideas of logic, we realize that something cannot be good and bad at the same time. That's called the law of non-contradiction. You can't say that something is good and something is bad at the same time. It just is illogical. So if you have a worldview that says, I believe in God, and another person has a worldview that says, nobody can believe in God, then that's a conflict that is going to be more serious than just the way we like to see the world. And we're going to talk about that because I want to know, what do you do when your truth about God is different than somebody else's truth, and how do you navigate that level of difference?